Welcome to the Just Trust the Process podcast, where faith, fortitude, and fierce determination collide to change the world. I'm bringing you the conversations that help you to trust God through the process, learn how to enjoy the process, and relax in the confidence that you will make it to your promised land. I'm your girl, Alisha J, and I'm here to help you pursue your purpose with passion and perseverance without losing your panache. So tonight we have our girl, Jasmine Renaè, CEO and founder of the I'm So Worth It Sisterhood Village, a women's community where purpose, growing in God, and living on purpose, fulfilling your destiny, and growth converge. Join her vibrant group of single women, dating and married women on a journey to fulfill their destiny. She is also my sister in Christ, minister of the gospel, intercessor, real estate agent, and fiance of Kaz, influencer, and dog mom of two. But before we welcome Jasmine in, let's shout out to our sponsor, Unmarried Without Children, a tale of how trusting the process led to a book. Available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, Alisha J shares her story of how she's navigating these dating streets while trusting God to heal her from her diagnosis of fertility challenges. She, like Jasmine, has a story to tell. So go and grab your copy today. Available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all things Alisha J. So, listen, talking about just trusting the process, our girl has been doing that for what seems like, your whole life, Jasmine? So, yes. Jasmine, tell the people a little bit more about yourself.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be here. It is just always a pleasure to sit across from you and talk with you and, learn from you and kind of vice versa. It's just always good to be in your company. So thank you for having me. So excited about this podcast. A little bit about me without taking too long. I didn't grow up in church. My family, we went to church, but we weren't connected, right? There was no relationship. So I knew of God, but I didn't know him for myself. And so it wasn't until I left for graduate school that I began to develop my own personal relationship with God. The seed was planted a little bit more when I was in undergrad. A girl asked me to come to I think it was called Impact. It was like this on-campus event with church. And I was like, I guess I'll, come check it out. And I had a good time. Like, I was never like, just against God, but that just wasn't my life. I was having too much fun in these streets, chasing behind these boys and just living life to the fullest. It was like church would be there, right? But it wasn't until I got to graduate school that I just had a very real encounter with God. It was just me and him, and I just needed him to show me that he was real. I went through a really tough time, like with this guy that I was dating, lost all of my friends. That situation all went downhill. And I was like, God, I have tried everything else but you.
Wow.
And if you are real, if you want a relationship with me, if it's not too late, show yourself to me. And from that moment, I've been on this just supernatural journey with God that has produced the fruit of I'm So Worth It, produced the fruit of me being in ministry, produced the fruit of just my heart for God and his people. And, I wanted to serve him what I thought was like right? I thought when you get into church, you have to have all your ducks in a row. I thought, everybody in church was perfect. Again, I didn't grow up church, so I don't know church. And so I was like, oh my God, I got to stop doing this. I got to stop doing it, which is true, but it's a process, right? It doesn't happen overnight. But what I will say is that the hand of God was very much supernaturally on my life, because after that prayer, when I say instantly, supernaturally, like drinking, done. Clubbing, done.
Wow.
Done. Now, again, we had some,
ups and downs. We know. That's the journey.
The decision was like, oh no, like I'm done with this. And so I just really thank God. And he showed me early on that there was a call and a purpose in my life. And so many years later, ended up birthing I'm So Worth It, because I got serious about pursuing God, and not just pursuing
Yes.
him, but pursuing him with a pure heart. And what does it look like to truly be sold out for Christ and saying no to the world? And so I felt like I was the only woman in this world that was not having sex and trying to wait. And I found my village, I found my tribe, I found other women that were doing it successfully, that was messing up every other day, but they were trying. And
Yeah.
we created this community and this village to support each other. And so even though we were single, are we still pursuing our purpose? Because you get so lost in singleness that you halt
Hmm.
everything until you get married, and then you're 40, 45, 50, and you've not accomplished anything because you're waiting. And so
Hmm.
learning to kind of
Hmm.
break that cycle, that life still goes on. We don't stop believing, we don't stop trusting God, but
Yes.
you don't stop living. And so there's I'm So Worth It birthed from that, and we've had conferences and events, and just looking forward to what else God is gonna do.
I love that. And so you said you were celibate. How long was your celibate journey? And we've talked about this before, but being celibate and you were like, "All right, God, what's going on?" So tell us about that and trusting that process because now you have a fiance. So
Yes,
talk
praise the Lord.
about that decision, what that conversation with God was like, and give us more insight of how you've trusted God throughout that journey and even the days when you were like, "Huh? Okay."
Sure. So it's funny. I'll never forget it. It was Easter 2008 is
Wow.
when I made the decision, or I wouldn't say I made the decision. That was the last day that I had sex. This
Okay.
Easter 2008. And I know this because the guy that I was dating, I found out that the same day, night, however, whatever it was that he slept with me, he also slept with his ex-girlfriend.
Oh, girl.
And so,
Oh,
child,
mom. Wait, let's take a second to sip that tea because I know it was a conversation that was had with that brother.
Mhm. It was a conversation, it was a
What?
fight. And again, this is what sparked that journey. Not even really realizing it, right? And I brag and say this, but it's still stupid. Like at least I had sex on the first that night, right? Like I wasn't pregnant. That is not okay at all.
Y'all, this is not okay. All
Not okay.
right?
Not
We
okay.
not
But
having sex. We not.
listen though, in my carnal mind, I needed to make sense of
Yes.
it because I was fuming. Like you put my life in danger. Like
Yes.
because I know we were having unprotected sex. You had been with this girl for years prior to meeting me, so I know you were having unprotected. So
Wow.
it disgusted me in such a way that I was like, no,
But
I
how
gotta
did
take.
you even find out, Jasmine?
Oh God! So this was back in the beautiful days of Facebook, right?
Oh,
And me and her were not friends on Facebook, but somehow I knew everything that was going on her page. She knew everything that was going on mine, right? Friends. We have friends that are on each other's page. And
ooh,
she would make posts saying she was with him, but I knew he was with me. And so it's like she was trying to get my attention and like make me upset. And so I started thinking
no.
she was lying. And of course, he took that and ran with it, right? So every time something got back to me, she lying, she lying. You see the kind of stuff that she does. Like, I'm sitting here with you. How is she making a post saying I just took her out? And so I began to think that this girl was quite delusional. And
Uh-huh.
so, but when she said she was with
That sounds
him,
like a narcissist, 1000%. But keep going, girl.
it was a mess. And so when she made that post, like, oh, Bay just left or something, because he worked third shift. And so, like I said, he came over to my house earlier that day. And I was like, I'm about to message her because this is just, the coincidence is just way too much for me. And what's even crazier is that I found out that she lived 4 blocks from my mom's house. So we grew up in the same area, 4 blocks from.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
wild.
actually, this is the craziest story ever, and we'll have to do this another day. But like, I saw his car parked in front of her house one day when I was on my way to work. I was like, "Whoa, is that is?"
What? Okay. All right. So we diverted for a second.
Yes,
Celibacy. Let's get back on that train.
yes. So
Girl, the tea, the tea, the
baby,
tea.
it's deep. It is so deep, and so and as I think about it, it's like, man, like God was giving me all the signs like, girl, come on, I'm trying to get you. I'm trying to get you. And so anyways,
Yes.
and it's funny because I mean, his name is Chaz, whatever. And I'm with Kaz. And so that's just
Yes,
so funny.
right. It's just hilarious. That is hilarious.
But Chaz truly catapulted me into this season because, again, once I found that out, I messaged her, we compared the receipts, and there was no denying it. And she was all but more than willing and excited to let me know, what had
Of
happened. And
course.
so for me, it was like dagger done, like
Yeah,
forking me, absolutely done with this. And that began the journey of we're not doing this anymore. And so I
absolutely.
negotiated though. I was like, I'm not in the relationship with God yet, right? And so I was like, okay, God, I'll make a deal with you. I will wait until I'm engaged. Not marriage, like that's crazy. But I will at least like get super. No, I'm sorry. Let me back up. I was like, I'll at least get super, super serious with the guy before. I didn't know how long it was gonna take to get super, super serious. But I'm saying like, a year, whatever. Like it won't be too soon, right?
Uh-huh.
And the more and more like God like peeled the layers to my heart, it was like, no, like I'm gonna push it to engagement. I'm gonna give it to engagement. And
Okay.
then it went to marriage, and it was like, what are we doing?
Yes.
We are really doing this,
Yes.
and we are on this journey to marriage. And so here
And
we are.
you didn't grow up in the church. And
Mhm.
so what made you come to the conclusion of I want to be celibate? Like what was the light bulb of okay, this is what we're doing?
Well, and that's a good question because it honestly, I hate to say this, but it didn't really have anything to do with God in the beginning. It was
Hmm.
more so I don't want to keep doing this. This is
Yeah.
not getting
Yeah.
me the results that I'm looking for,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I
Yeah.
always say like I'm the kind of person it doesn't take me a lot of times to realize like nope, this isn't working. And so it
Yep.
wasn't like I was like just sleeping around or like had all these so many different partners. Like that wasn't even the case. But I was just like, I've done this enough to know this is not the
This ain't
formula.
working.
Yeah,
Right.
like this
This ain't
this
it.
ain't the formula. And so I'm like, let me just try holding off from this because I see where it takes me, right? Like I know
Mm-hmm.
how much of a boss chick I was before I got in the bed with him. Like, what happened? Like
Right.
there's
Right.
something and again, not knowing what is being exchanged spiritually because I'm not in that world yet. But I knew
Yes.
that something went wrong once I laid down. Like something in my brain was no longer working and functioning the way that it should because I done laid down with this man. And so I was like, yeah, we're not doing that
Yes.
anymore. We're not doing that.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
So and I think I love the fact that you're saying that even though, God desires for us to live holy lives, your initial reaction wasn't I'm doing this for God. Your initial reaction was like I'm doing this for me. And I believe that God wants us to make the conscious decision to work in our own lives to figure out, hey, this isn't working and let me do some inner work for me, but it
Mhm.
still align with God, right?
That's right.
So I love that. And I love that you're being vulnerable because this is going to help a lot of women who are struggling with
Yeah.
being celibate, right? It's I'm sure your story, like you said, you have very similar stories with a lot of the people in your community. And so I want you to tell us kind of how you shifted from being um growing your relationship in Christ, and then you became very involved in the church. So what did that look like coming from not being a believer, we're a believer, and now I'm very involved?
Yeah, so back to graduate school, it was just me. I didn't have any friends there. I was about 7 hours away from home, and I found this church, Hopewell Missionary Baptist Church, Pastor
I went
Swim.
to
Shout out to him.
Hopewell.
Did you?
Did Yeah,
Not
Hopewell with Pastor Shields?
No, this is in Carbondale, Illinois.
Oh, Illinois. There's another Hopewell? That is wild.
Hope Hopewell Missionary Baptist Church, where
There's
these
one
folks are
in
running
Georgia.
around speaking in tongues. I was like, what is all of this? Again, all this is very new to me, but I felt so
Okay.
comfortable and at home there, and they asked me to serve in the children's ministry. And I was like, can I stand in front of the youth, not even the kids, about the teens. I was like,
Okay.
can I stand in front of these kids knowing that I ain't living right? Right?
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
took that very seriously early on, and I was like, well, give me some time to think about it. Like, I know that I want to be involved and I want to help, but I just personally feel like there's some areas in my life that is not quite aligned to be standing in front of these kids trying to tell them what not to do. And
Mm-hmm.
so I remember, kind of going back to my apartment and just kind of and taking a deep dive into myself and saying, like, Jasmine, are you ready to give some of this stuff up? Because you feel I didn't know about being called quite yet, but because you feel passionate about wanting to serve, do you think that you can stop going out, to the club and doing this and doing that? Because I
Mm-hmm.
just felt like
Mm-hmm.
that's what's needed for me to do it. I
Okay.
didn't feel right saying, hey kids, don't you shouldn't do this and here's why, and then they see me, doing it.
At
And
the club.
so
Yeah.
absolutely. So after I had that conversation with myself and I was like, I'm gonna do this. Like I'm gonna give this as much energy as I gave the world. And so again, God supernaturally kind of stripped those desires away from me, and where I didn't have the taste for it, like
That's
completely stripped
beautiful.
that desire. And I was like, yes, like I'm serving in the youth ministry, I'm a part of the women's ministry, I'm in the choir. Cannot sing, let's be clear, but God season, God
At
knew
least you
my
can hold a note, right? Hold a
listen.
note though.
It was the most supernatural and beautiful like experience with God, because I really felt in that moment that every prayer that I prayed and every tear that I cried, like he really heard it, because I was like, God, I just want to sing in a choir, and I feel like he graced me for that season, allowed me to be in there and have that
Yes.
experience. And it was just that those 2 years in graduate school was the most amazing spiritual transformation I could have ever, ever, ever asked for. And so, like I said, I went as deep and as hard for God and the church as I did for the world. And it was an easy transformation because God's hand was on my life. I didn't have to do it because I knew in my own strength I couldn't. I
Absolutely.
loved having in the club. I was in the club 7 days a week. Like literally, there was Taco
Come
Tuesday,
on.
Wild Out Wednesday, Thirsty Thursday, Free Friday. Like there was a reason to be there every day.
Wow.
And even drinking and all that, like I was
Mm-hmm.
good. And so
And,
it had to be God.
and to know you now, I wouldn't even think that that was your past, right?
To
Because
God be the glory.
I know the Jasmine. I know. I'm like, that ain't the same girl. That is not
Yes,
the same girl. So
that's
we're
how I
gonna
know it.
pause for right 1000%. We're gonna pause for a brief message from our sponsors, but when we come back, I want you to talk about the experience that you've had now in church and how you navigated through that and dating in church and that story. And you know what story I'm talking about.
Man,
But
let's do it.
listen. All right. So, from our sponsors, this is your girl, Alisha J from All Things Alisha J, our sponsor, who is sponsoring this episode of Just Trust the Process. And All Things Alisha J, we help women find who they are by walking confidently in their God given purpose without losing their personal style or flair. We also love to entertain you, so make sure you check us out with some funny videos and just things that will help encourage you throughout the week. So thank you and shout out to All Things Alisha J. So Jasmine, tell us about the experience you had coming to Atlanta, coming and joining a major uh, ministry, a big ministry here in Atlanta, and your experience with that, and how did you navigate through that, and what did it feel like on the back end of that? Like, what was the result, and then how did you come back to a place where you were like, all right, God, here we are?
Yeah, so that was tough. Because again, if you can I mean, if you can kind of recall back to, like I said, I went all in.
Mm-hmm.
I love God. I love his church. I loved his
And so this is
people.
after you left Illinois. So this
This is
is
after I left Illinois,
okay.
yes. But this is the heart that I'm carrying, right? This is the mind that
Right.
I'm carrying. I'm still like I
Yes.
joined the church here immediately. Started serving. I helped a small ministry start up, and I was. I guess in like official terms, I was his EP. You know, I was the executive pastor. Unofficially, there, I was the second in charge with that ministry. Just again, like when I'm in it, I'm in it. I'm connected. I'm
Right.
serving. Like
Yeah.
I love God's people. I love His church. I want to see it flourish. And then like I said, I left that church and went to a bigger ministry. But again, I just speak of like the heart, because the heartbreak that I felt from what happened was only a result because of how much in love I was with the church,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
what my perception of church was. I don't come from this background, so I don't know how to play church. I don't know that the
That's
deacon
good.
he's singing on Sundays, and afterwards he in the back smoking and drinking. I don't know that part of
Yeah.
church.
Yeah.
I don't know about the pastor cussing and beating his wife after service, but shouting you clean. You know that I don't know
Yeah.
that part of church. All I know is you love God, you want to serve God, you do your best to live right, but you not still looking like the world. So I thought. And so I remember, making these declarations that there is absolutely nothing that could make me stop going to church, stop loving God. Like, I don't care what happens. It could be anything.
Yes.
I'm sold out, yay. And I am, and I was. But when I tell you things began to fall apart slowly, and I started seeing the cracks in the armor, if you will. And
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, this is not a perfect place. I began to learn
Right.
that,
Right.
really, really quickly. And I was like, okay, I got to reevaluate, because it's some real stuff happening in the church that I didn't think went down like this, right? And fortunately, I figured that out through dating. I dated
Mm.
not the pastor, but a pastor of one of the pastors in the ministry, and he was a hot mess. I mean, he wasn't living for God. He wasn't trying to live right.
Wow. And you
You
the pastor.
like, come
Listen.
on, like, you of all people. And
Right.
so, just like, this is a lot,
Mm-hmm.
how do I keep my heart right when I see what is going on? And I really believe, as I can now healthily look back and kind of like just walk through that season, I know it was a spiritual attack of the enemy to get me off course from my calling and from my purpose.
Mm.
And if I'm honest and I'm transparent, he succeeded in a sense, because for seasons, I was like, I just want to love God, right? I just want to be one of them people
Mm-hmm.
now. I can remember
Yeah.
like crying to God and saying like, why couldn't I just be one of those people that just go to church on Sunday, God love you, and get to go home?
That part. That
Why
part.
why do I have to be able to see what I see and sense what I sense, and
Mm-hmm.
get like, I don't like, I just want to be a go to church, yay, praise the Lord, come home, love my family, and that's it. And I felt very burdened by it, because it's like, why? I didn't ask for this. Like,
Right.
why? And so, it was hard to kind of put those pieces back together of being hurt by the people in the church, and
Yeah.
then dating somebody in the church.
Yeah.
It was just a lot
It's a
at
lot.
once. And a lot
Yeah.
to try to unpack of like, why is this happening? What is this trying to teach me? Because for years it was like I was very big on, okay, this is just a lesson. What is God trying to teach me? Let's get the lesson and let's keep moving. Like, I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
mastered I mastered that. Get the lesson, pick it up, keep going. Like, don't dwell. But those years really stuck with me for a long time, because I couldn't understand where God was in any of this, and why he was allowing it
Mm.
to happen, and how do people get to still flourish after the stuff that they're doing. And it really challenged my theology. It challenged my trust. It challenged my own walk with God. And I'm happy to be on the other side of that, coming
Yes.
out. um but it was tough. It was very tough. It was very tough to walk that out. And serving and dating, kind of the both sides of that. You hurt from serving, and you're hurt from dating in the church. It just compounded. It was a lot.
So I hate that that happened to you, right? Because you didn't grow up in the church, and as a church girl that literally was born in the church, I've seen the bad side. I've seen the good and the bad and the ugly and the great, right? Not all
Absolutely.
church people are horrible. Not all pastors are shady,
That's
right?
right.
So we know that there are amazing pastors, amazing ministers of the gospel, amazing servants of the Lord who actually have servant hearts, who really do want to please God and all the things that they do, right? But people be peopling, right? People are people. And but what I love about you is that even though you had this experience, you still went to God. So you may have quit church, you may have quit people, but you didn't quit God. And I love it's similar to, the Job journey, right? Where, he was like, I'm at my wits end, but he didn't quit God, right? And so I
Mm-hmm.
think it's so important that people understand that even as we are going through and we don't understand what we're going through, the person that we need to stay connected to, the person that we need to um, seek out is God, and trying
Yeah,
to understand. And sometimes he gives us understanding, and sometimes we don't get that understanding. But even
that's
if
right.
we don't get that understanding, that relationship with God should stay solid, because at
Yeah,
the end of the day, God is the author and the finisher of our faith. And he is the
yeah,
only one who knows why you're going through what you're going through. And so he knew that he could trust you with your story, and he knew that he could trust that you would not leave him in your relationship. So how long did it take you to recover, to start going back to church?
well, let's see. Well, there's a difference. I would still go. Like, I would go to churches. I would
Okay.
visit. But it was plugging in. It was committing. It was committing to another pastor and another ministry. That took some time. But I remember. I think it was that 2018. I ended up finding a little small church out in Decatur, I think it was, and God used that pastor prophetically to speak everything that had happened.
Wow.
And yeah, and he's like, I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm like these other pastors. He said, I don't. He's like, and he had this sense of humor. He's like, I don't want you like they tried to come for you. He's like, I'm happily married. I have a wife. I love her. He's like,
Wow.
yes, girl, and it floored me. I'll never forget. It's funny. I had just saw the status, my Facebook status. I was like, why did nobody tell me not to wear a wig to church on this tonight? Because it was a Wednesday night. Girl, I was on that floor. I felt my wig shifting. I was like, Lord,
No, not
stay
the
with
wig
me.
shifting. Oh my gosh, that's like the worst feeling
Girl,
ever.
I wasn't prepared. I was not coming there to be slain and laid out. But God used that man on a Wednesday night. And it was after service. But I mean the
Yes.
ministry just continued, and it was from that moment I was like, okay, God, I'm safe here. I can connect here. And so I plugged into that ministry and, did what I know to do and began serving and, growing with them as well. But it took some time, and I know I needed to hear from God through him, through somebody, to know that
Yeah.
this was a safe place, because at that point I began not to trust my own eyes and trust my own ears, because I thought these other places were safe. I thought these other people were safe. I prayed about everything. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't make
Yeah.
any quick decisions. I remember how difficult it was for me to
That's
join
good.
that mega ministry. I went to numerous churches. I fasted. I prayed. Like, I went through the process to make sure that this is the right place for me to be in. So
Yes.
to fall apart the way that it did, I was like, do I really hear him?
Yeah.
Do
Yeah. Absolutely.
what like how did this happen? And
Yeah.
so we begin, and I think that's just part of the enemy's plan, to deceive you from being able to think that you can't hear. But what I had to learn is that just because things go wrong and fall apart, it doesn't mean that it still wasn't God.
Yeah. And this is true, because sometimes God takes things away so that he can give us better, right?
That's that's
And it's
because he doesn't force he
beautiful.
doesn't have he doesn't force his will on us. A human is gonna do
Exactly.
human does. That's not his intent.
Yes.
But if a human decides to stray and do their own thing and fall over to their lustful desires and all this, then
Yes.
that we can't blame God for that.
Not at all. And you're right. Like you said, the God gives us free will, and that's what I love about God. We're not
That's
robots.
right. That's right.
We can do what
That's
we want, but God desires for us to be in his perfect will. And I
that's
love
right.
again that it's a heart thing, right? It's a heart matter. And you said the magic words, you found your safe space. And so I want to thank you so much, Jasmine, for being on the call. My goodness, we have Zoom calls so many times. Being on the podcast today. Yes, I appreciate you. Your vulnerability will not only bless the people, but it will continue to bless you. And I'm looking forward to seeing all the things that are coming up. So, how can we stay in contact with you? How can people get in touch with I'm So Worth It? Tell us where we can follow you.
Absolutely. Thank you again. Thank you for having me, and God bless you. I'm excited to see how God is going to move throughout this podcast. But I can be reached. I'm so worth it. I am underscore so worth it on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. It's Jasmine Renaè. That's Jasmine. Renaè, Ranae. I would love to connect with you and just be on the lookout for what God has in store for the ministry.
Absolutely. So thank you, Jasmine, again. And ladies and gentlemen who have joined us, wow, what an incredible conversation we had today with Jasmine Renaè. I want to give a huge thank you again to her for sharing her powerful insights with us. And again, your wisdom and your experiences are truly inspiring and uplifting to us all. And of course, a special shout out to our amazing sponsors, All Things Alisha J, your one-stop shop for everything you need to stay empowered and fabulous. And the book, Unmarried Without Children, a must-read for anyone navigating life's journey with grace and purpose. Remember, ladies, as we walk through this path of purpose, as we trust the process, stay rooted in the faith, and know that God's timing is perfect. Until next time, keep shining, keep smiling, knowing that you can always count on God. I love y'all. Be blessed.